This is Hypnotic Stories, Episode 8, titled Funhouse Mirrors.
Hypnotic Stories is your treasure trove of hypnotic storytelling for change work and self-improvement. Here's your host, Master Storyteller James Hazlerig.
Hi, well, I'm glad you're back for another podcast. This episode is called Funhouse Mirrors, and I use as a frame in these stories coming up a story that I actually came up with myself. Now, generally, as a storyteller, I'm a thief. I take stories from all over the place and put them all together, not unlike the way that we hypnotists pick up different techniques and different phrases and make them our own. But this particular story I actually came up with on my own. Now, it's not a great epic by any means, but I find that it is a lovely little metaphor for what we do, because so many clients come in thinking that they're not enough, thinking that they don't measure up. And our job is to really hold up an accurate mirror sometimes and just let them know how awesome they truly are. That's what this story is all about. Enjoy. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a little girl who grew up in the circus. And so her family had no permanent residence. They just moved around from town to town, and yet she had a certain stability in her life because her parents, who were trapeze artists, they had a community that they lived in, and so she grew up around the knife thrower and around the little people and around the big strong man and the bearded lady and the chicken boy and all sorts of unusual people. And the whole time that she was growing up, she just knew that people stared at those that she considered her family. And every town they'd stop in, lots of the normal-looking people would come in. And she started to notice, as she was growing up, that they stared at her, too. She wondered exactly what it was they were staring at. So she sought out a mirror. Now, the problem is that in the circus, the only mirrors available were the Funhouse Mirrors. When she went into the House of Mirrors, she saw reflections, and yet they were twisted and distorted in strange ways. In some, she appeared monstrously tall, and others strangely wide, or one eye looking bigger than the other. And she thought, what a strange and hideous freak I must be. And you know, that's an interesting thing about mirrors. There was a poet, one of my favorite poets, William Butler Yeats, wrote a poem called The Two Trees. And in fact, if you look for it, you can find that Lorena McKennitt turned it into a very beautiful song. And in the poem, he talks about two trees, and one of them is the tree you see if you look inside yourself. And it's a holy tree. And from joy, the holy branches start. It's beautiful. And then, though, he mentions there's another tree that you see if you look outside into the dim glass that the demons hold up, that were forged when God slept in times of old, this glass of outer weariness. And he says, in that the tree appears barren and broken, and the ravens of unresting thought go from branch to branch, flying, crying to and fro with cruel claws and hungry throat. And so it really matters where you're looking and which mirror you're looking into when you try to figure out what you're going to see. Now it happened that at one point this girl, who was noticing more and more that people were staring at her and was quite sure that there must be something extraordinarily awful about her appearance, eventually found that the circus had camped next to a beautiful, still lake. And one day she went down to gather water for her family, and she looked into the still surface of the lake and saw the most beautiful woman she'd ever seen, staring right back at her. And in that moment, she realized that she was beautiful. When she saw her true self, not the mirrors held up by demons forged when God slept in times of old, and staring there at that beautiful woman, she fell in love with herself. Now, you may have heard a story from a long time ago about a very beautiful young Greek youth, for this is a Greek myth, named Narcissus, who looked into the water. And it said that he was so beautiful that he fell in love with his own reflection. And so we speak of people who are full of themselves as being narcissistic. But I wonder, as Narcissus stared there, was it truly the beauty of his own face, or was it the beauty of the water itself? Was he recognizing that water flows into everything and out of everything, and perhaps he knew that he himself is made mostly of water, and the water that flows in the earth has been there since the very formation of this ball. And every drop of water that he or the girl scoops up to drink is a drop that has been in the Nile when Cleopatra was there, and perhaps inside Cleopatra herself. Each drop of water has been rain. It has been ocean. It has been man and woman and beast and plant. And perhaps what Narcissus fell in love with there in that moment was his own eternity, and the realization that he is water, and water lasts forever. And who knows, perhaps Narcissus stared all day and all night, and they say that he even became a flower that grows there. But wasn't he always the flower? And the girl stared so long that the sun set, painting the sky behind her and the water before her in a million beautiful colors. And then the stars began to come out. And looking down, she saw as though she was swimming in a sea of stars, no longer quite sure what was the sky and what was the lake, and what was her and what was her reflection. And staring at the stars, she remembered a story that an old storyteller with the circus had told. A woman from a faraway land with dusky skin, who said that a long time ago there was a prince. And this prince was named Krishna, for he was the avatar, the earthly incarnation of the god Vishnu, the preserver. And Krishna was a mischievous little boy and was always getting into trouble and playing different games. And at one point, it said that he loved stealing butter and tasting it. And so the story goes that one day, his nanny was taking care of him, and she noticed that some of the butter was missing, and she went to him and said, "Krishna, you bad little boy, have you stolen the butter?" To which Krishna shook his head and replied, "Mm-mm. And she said, "Oh, no, I see butter upon your hands, and I bet the rest of the butter is in your mouth, isn't it? And he said, mm. And she took his jaw and insisted he open it up. And looking in, she thought to see the butter upon his tongue, but instead, she stared into an immense sea of stars, for the entire cosmos was inside him, staring back at her. And in that moment, she knew that the little boy she was taking care of was more than what he appeared to be on the outside, that when she looked within, he was eternal. What she didn't realize is that if she looked within, she would know that she was eternal as well. But instead, she just looked up into the sky and saw a leaf clinging to a tree. And you know, that leaf in the height of the summer was being tossed by the summer winds, and the wind would tug at it saying, let go, let go. And the leaf would say, no, I have to hold on, I can't let go. I have so much work I have to do. And the wind would say, let go, dance with me, dance with me. And the leaf would say, no, I must hold on, until finally the autumn came. And the tree released the leaf, and the leaf was released from the tree, and it drifted down, dancing on the wind, going down, down, deeper and deeper down, until it landed on a stream of unconsciousness, and drifted along on that stream, and that stream became a creek, and that creek became a babbling brook, and that brook flowed into a river, and that river flowed into a greater, slower river, and that into one of the biggest rivers in the world, and then into a delta and into the sea, leaving behind the channel of the river and entering that vast ocean filled with the little bits of salt that had been carried there by all of those droplets of water. But soon the sun heated the water, and the waves tossed them up, and some of that water evaporated. Now the leaf had long since dissolved, but little bits of what it once was went in the water, and that water evaporated and formed in a cloud, and that cloud floated through the sky off of the ocean, and then it grew heavier and heavier, more and more did the water gather in it, until finally it was dark, and with a great flash of lightning and a crash of thunder it burst, and the water poured down upon the earth, landing upon the mountains. And as each drop went along the mountains, it picked up a little bit of salt, a little bit of the minerals, and flowed eventually into a little rivulet, which flowed into a stream of unconsciousness, which flowed into a creek, into a brook. And at one point it flowed into a river, and that river flowed into a big, still lake. And sitting there, staring into the lake, was a girl who had never known how beautiful she truly was. And as she stared at the stars in the water, slowly they began to fade, and the colors of the sunrise began to paint the sky behind her and the water before her, until at last the sun rose, and she looked out at the world with new, beauty-filled eyes. Thanks for joining me for the beginning of Season 2 of the Hypnotic Stories podcast. Now, those of you who have been paying attention to my older podcast will remember I used to have one with a totally different title that turned out to be a really awful title. I really hated it, and it made a commitment I couldn't live up to. And so I've refurbished those 7 episodes into Season 1 of the Hypnotic Stories podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed them in that form. So I'm excited about getting Season 2 going. We've got some more guest storytellers lined up to be performing, so you don't just have to listen to my storytelling. You can enjoy that of many other people. I just got back about a week ago from Hypno Thoughts Live, less than a week ago. Wow, time flies. And I had the joy of putting on a full-day workshop in storytelling, working with several new storytellers, some of them really very new to the art, some of them very accomplished. And we heard some fantastic stories, and I'm hoping to invite actually several of those students to be guest storytellers in the future, because we heard some great stories. I also got to do a 2-hour workshop during the weekend presenting hypnotic storytelling to just a packed room. It was crazy how many people were in there, and they all seemed to have a really great time, so I guess it was a good thing. Now, I have also, since I got back, started a Facebook group, theoretically for discussions of this podcast, although really to move forward with my mission of encouraging hypnotic storytelling in all its forms. And I decided to be a little adventurous, and we're calling that the Order of Spellbinding Storyteller. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, it's a little mystical and a little fun. Why not? Let's have fun. We are the makers of legends, so we might as well have a good time. If you're not yet a member of the Order of Spellbinding Storytellers, then just search for it on Facebook and apply to be a member. And I will most likely approve you because you are awesome. Now, it's September 2017 as I record this. In October, I'll be going up to Chicago for the Mid-America Hypnosis Conference, where I will also be presenting an hour of hypnotic stories. So if you happen to be going that way or you're thinking about it, stop on by and enjoy some great stories. The other things that I have in the works, of course, down the line, I have a really grand hypnotic storytelling course that's going to be studio recorded, and it's going to involve stories that teach you how to tell stories and all kinds of amazing stuff like that. In the meantime, however, I have filmed and audio recorded some of the live classes that I've been teaching, and I'm going to be putting that together into a course that will be available online for a reasonable fee fairly soon. So stay in touch. Please tell your friends about this podcast. Please join the Order of Spellbinding Storytellers. And most of all, keep telling great stories.
Thanks for listening to the Hypnotic Stories podcast with James Hazlerig. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your friends. For free storytelling tips, go to www.hypnotic-stories.com.